All right, today we're going to talk about the Vortex HD 5000 Fury rangefinding binoculars. This is a nice set of binoculars from Vortex using some of their HD glass, and it mixes a rangefinder in with the binoculars. Let's take a look at what it offers. So the Fury HD 5000 are the second generation rangefinding binoculars from Vortex. They add additional distance ranging from 5 to 5,000 yards on a reflective target, at least that's advertised, and Vortex advertises 5 to 1,600 yards on a deer-sized target, non-reflective. They claim plus or minus 1 yard accuracy out to 100 yards, plus or minus 2 yard accuracy out to 1,000 yards, and plus or minus 3 yard accuracy from 1,000 to 5,000 yards. They are a fairly compact style binocular for a 10 by 42 with HD glass. They're about 5.75 inches long by 5 inches wide. I picked these up because I was specifically looking for a rangefinding binocular to try out for hunting and long range shooting. Currently I use an older Leupold rangefinding binocular that really doesn't have a very good glass quality, and they're probably only good to about 350 to 400 yards for deer-sized targets or non-reflective grass, rocks, that kind of thing. I tried to shoot just out to about 600, 700 yards in an open area not too long ago, and we actually had to kind of leapfrog our measurements to measure a steel target at 600 yards. So I've been wanting a rangefinder that handles further distances a little better. So obviously the Vortex Fury HD is a lot cheaper than something like a Leica, even though Leicas are great quality. So currently the MSRP on the Vortex Fury is about $1,600. The retail price that I'm seeing right now as of the time of filming this, which is early March 2020, I'm seeing them for typically about $1,200, $1,199. Cabela's has them for $1,000. I don't know if that's a current price or a sale price, but if you shop around a little bit, $1,200 is about what you should be paying, if not a little bit less, depending on deals or sales. So far in my experience with them, I've taken them to a couple different matches, hiking, hunting, and it's really been nice. I'll talk about the hunting part of it in just a little bit, but it's really been nice so far being able to pretty much hit anything that I can aim at under 2,000 yards and get a measurement that I can trust. Now, I haven't had a lot of opportunity to range targets from 1,000 to 2,000 out in field conditions and then engage them to double check if it matches up with my dope. But so far, I'm able to get a quick reading on those type measurements. In February, I shot a match that has known distance targets, and they're set throughout natural terrain. You walk up to the shooting station and have a couple minutes to be able to find the targets, and they draw a diagram that you can download before the match. And that diagram kind of shows you a general layout of what the target should look like. And one of the nice things about having these is even though the distances were known, I was able to find targets, laze them, get an idea how far away they were, and then use that to kind of pick out where they should be in that layout. So far, compared to a pair of Diamondback 10 by 50 binoculars that I've been using for a couple years, these are a little bit smaller overall, and they're pretty close to the same weight. So they're just as convenient. They feel about the same to carry in a glass pack chest harness, which is my preferred way for carrying them in hunting or hiking situations. So let's take a look at some actual field conditions, and we'll get a feeling for how well these range both handheld and off a tripod. Alright, so we're going to try these in kind of a typical glassing scenario. I'm up here on some rocks, kind of a nice sized overlook, and I'm just basically going to be doing it handheld, supporting my knees, see what kind of ranges I can get. So first off, pretty obviously about 200 yards, kind of straight down into what would probably be one of the most likely hunting ranges and location I'd be watching from here. 200 yards is a nice, quick, easy laze. Let's take a look. There's a lot of snow on the ground, obviously, in February here in Colorado. So got kind of the bottom of this valley, mostly snowy. I'm going to aim kind of towards the other end of it into some trees and see what I can get off of the trees. 800 yards, nice, easy range. Now let's go across the valley onto the trees. So as I scan up and across the valley, starting about 1,600 yards, I get a nice strong signal up to about 1900 yards, and then kind of this first ridge here, the furthest I can see is it's marking at about 2118, and at 2118, if I hold the button down in the scan mode, I am getting a little bit of off and on. You know, it'll display 2118, then it'll drop off. A little bit of a peak a little further on. Let's see if we can range that with handheld. So up on the peak, same kind of thing, a little bit flashing off and on. I'm getting about 2485, right around there. So enough that I could get a distance off of it, but it does kind of flash on and off. Well, I can try a little bit further straight away. All right, so it looks about 2485 is the furthest I could get. Anywhere from about 2100 to 2485 seems to be a little bit hit or miss. You know, I'll get signal, or I'll get a measurement from it, but it's not a real consistent measurement. I may have to turn it onto the scan mode and kind of scan that area a little bit to actually pick it up. So now I've mounted it up on a tripod, and we're going to look to see if I can get a little bit further measurements with the added stability of a tripod. I shouldn't have any issues with the closer distances, so I'm actually going to start with the further away, about that 2485 area where I was kind of getting the last measurements handheld. So let's go ahead and start with that and see what I can get. Alright, so in that same area, I'm getting pretty consistently 2490 to 2500 by hitting the very top of that hill, and it's not flickering the way that it did with the handheld. Yeah, I can actually get a strong signal that stays on at that point. So we're going to shoot a little more up the valley and see what we can get through there. So the furthest I can hit up this direction is about 2200 yards. Unfortunately, there's another valley that drops and then comes up again, and I'm not sure how much further that next hillside is compared to the valley that the ridgeline I am hitting. So from this vantage point, I can basically hit anything within 2500 yards, and then the next ridge line, you know, the ridge line to my south is probably 2 miles or more, maybe 3 miles to that next ridge. So far I'm really enjoying the Vortex Viper HD. The only thing I've noticed is you're definitely not going to get 5,000 yards out of it like the name would imply, which is pretty typical for most rangefinders. You're very rarely going to see the distances that they advertise, other than maybe the absolute optimum conditions with a highly reflective background. For me, the long range shooting that I do and hunting, hiking, those kind of things that I do, the distance is plenty adequate. Most of my shots for competition or practice, just based on the areas that I've set up, are probably 1,000 to 1,200 yards and in. In fact, a lot of the places I shoot, I just can't get out that far. So I'm kind of limited there. And then hunting, I'm not going to take a shot nearly that far. So my son had a mule deer tag at the end of 2019, a late season tag. And one of the nice things with this is we spotted some bucks that were way too far away from him to shoot. But at about 1,600 yards, I was able to get a handheld measurement on where they were. And then what I did, they were on this hillside at the end of a valley, and I was able to range different points along the valley and kind of get an idea of, you know, picture, okay, if we can get to those trees, the deer are 1,600 yards away, you know, those trees are 1,000 yards away, that'll get us into 600 yards. And being able to use it even for distances that you're not necessarily going to hunt at or shoot at, it can still give you a good idea of how far you need to go to hit a certain landmark, or, you know, if you need to close the distance by a certain amount, you can use the rangefinder to get an idea of what terrain you would be in at that distance. So far I'm really enjoying them. So now, are there any disadvantages to the Fury HD 5000? Now, with anything, you are going to have some pluses and minuses. Now, I think there's a lot of value in these binoculars for the range that they will measure, especially for the price. If you look at some of the Leica HD series of rangefinding binoculars, these you can find about half the price. So I do think you're getting a lot of value for the money. Now, they say HD 5000 right in the title. These are really not 5,000 yard capable, especially under normal circumstances that you're going to use them. Now, depending on what you're doing, if you need 5,000 yards, these are not going to work for you. On the other hand, as I kind of showed earlier in the video, I'm usually able to get somewhere between 1900 to 2400 yards, even while ranging towards rocks and trees and grass and things like that. So just a natural terrain type target, not anything really reflective, 1900 to 2400 yards. Now for me, that's adequate for pretty much anything that I could use it for right now. So I think for the money, it's a really good value. The glass. So I talked to some of the Vortex reps when I was shooting the Vortex Extreme match last year, and I was asking them a lot of questions about these binoculars because I was looking at buying them, but I hadn't really used them hands-on yet, especially the updated 5000 version. So I was asking them about the quality of the glass, and they said that the HD Fury 5000 series rangefinding binoculars have about the same quality glass as their Viper series of binoculars. So you are getting an HD level glass, but you are getting the lower end of the HD glass. These are a 10 by 42. I've done a couple videos where you can see the Diamondback binoculars that I have. They are not the newer HD version. They're the, I believe, kind of Gen 2 version, not the original, but they were slightly updated, but it was before the HD came out. And those are a 10 by 50 binocular. Using them side by side, I really don't see much difference in light transmission with the 50 millimeter and the Diamondback, and I do think that that has to do with the slightly higher quality glass in these because it's an HD series glass. One thing I have noticed that I almost think I see more in these than I do the cheaper Diamondbacks is chromatic aberration. If you don't know what that is, I'm not exactly an expert on optics, but I was into photography for years before I started looking at higher end binoculars or rifle scopes. And chromatic aberration is basically color fringing on the edge of really high contrast areas. So like if you look, in a scene like this where you have, the fairly bright sky and then a dark ridge line, or it's even more noticeable if you have branches that are skylit against a bright sky. Sometimes you'll see kind of a green or a purple cast to the edge of that. That's chromatic aberration. And overall, it's not horrible in these, but on really bright, contrasty days, I do tend to notice it, especially scanning towards the horizon line. I'll see it. So overall, just a couple small negatives that I've noticed with these. Even with just the couple negatives that there are, I'm still very happy with them. If I had the opportunity to try out the Leicas, I wouldn't mind doing kind of a side-by-side comparison of the two just to see how they fare, getting to use them in the long run. I've gotten a chance to look through the Leicas in a match, and they're high-quality glass, but for almost half the price, it's hard to beat the Vortex, especially, if you're on a budget and you want as much ranging power mixed in with an HD glass binocular without spending as much money. And I know these aren't cheap, but I'm definitely really appreciating the ability to use these as my main binocular, and as I'm scouting, as I'm hunting, I can be scanning with these, and then if I need a measurement, it's just right there. So I like that ability not to have to switch back and forth, because generally I found hiking, hunting, that kind of stuff, that my rangefinder that I used previously not only had a fraction of the range that this does, but at the same time I was frequently carrying the Diamondback binoculars in a chest harness, which I still do with these, and then my rangefinder would find its way in some pocket where it wasn't convenient to grab when I needed it. So I really do appreciate the 2-in-1 function of a range-finding binocular. Alright guys, so those are some of my thoughts on the features, the actual usability, and then some of the pluses and minuses of using the Vortex Fury HD 5000. Right now I think they're a great value for the price, and just like any other Vortex product, obviously you have the unconditional guarantee, so if you ever damage it, or what I like, even if you have a problem with the electronics, they're going to cover it under warranty. Definitely the go-to pair of rangefinding binoculars for me right now, and I don't see that changing anytime in the future. I think the only thing that I would really be interested in having them add is some kind of a ballistic component, like some of the others now on the market, where you could actually tie your rifle ballistics and get a firing solution from the display. All right guys, that's it. Thanks for watching.